Today, I want to get into Jimin saying that he is not okay at what he does. I want to get into people saying that Jimin and Suga spent time together before Suga left. And I want to get into TXT members saying they're scared. So hey Dumplings, it's Dave. Decide hate it or not, make sure you're subscribed with the notification bell on. Grab your dumpling, take Spilling Mug merch, and let's go. TXT fans recently were extremely shocked to hear some of the terrible conditions that the members had to endure during their early days. I think with every really popular group, they have a backstory that is a bit less than desirable. I think this is expected because one of the reasons the group would become popular or very successful would be because they are relatable. And a lot of people, or the mass majority of people, live in a very unfavorable conditions. BTS had that sort of thing happen to them, and I think that ultimately made the audience feel like they were relatable and down-to-earth people. So when TXT's Taehyun came out and talked about his poor living conditions as a trainee, he and the group was praised for going through such conditions. However, personally, I was very surprised that they were even in those types of conditions, given that at the time of their debut, BTS was already extremely successful, meaning it's not like the label didn't have enough money. However, it seemed like the label really did not, and thus TXT lived in less than well conditions. There apparently was this extension cord that the members had to use for anything they needed, and when touching the cord, they literally got electrocuted. This happened to Taehyun as well as Huening, who was believed to have turned pale from the shock. This was such a shock to Taehyun that he admitted to still being somewhat traumatized from it, that it's hard for him to touch a cable without thinking about that. This of course caused a lot of outrage online as people were extremely upset that TXT even had to go through these conditions, because these are conditions that wouldn't even really happen even if they were in a tough apartment. Also, this idea that since it was just an extension cord, could the staff not have just replaced the cord and spent like $5 buying a new one just to ensure that the members were not shocking themselves? People were talking about how the former Big Hit or Hype staff just really didn't care about TXT at all and just couldn't care less. And I get that. I understand why a staff wouldn't care, because why would you care or put effort into managing a bunch of trainees who you don't even know if they'll even debut and make the company money? However, you need to care about them as normal human beings. On the other hand, you must take a lot of these things as entertainment and to not let it be something that actually makes you angry. If you're sitting there and you're furious that Hype did this to TXT and cannot move past it, then you need to focus on something else, because these things were not meant to be said to bash the company or say how bad their staff was. It's to say that the boys really came from grassroots and they had a lot of struggles. I don't know about TXT, but a lot of artists and celebrities will sometimes exaggerate or lie about these sorts of struggles just so that they can appear more like they came from the bottom up. Again, I don't think TXT is lying, but there is a point why this is being brought up, to make sure we all know that they did struggle and it wasn't easy for them. The point isn't to bring the label down. We do react to a lot of TXT moments on Patreon. Just go on Patreon and write TXT in the search, and we react to things from music videos to funny videos, and we all have a great time having fun and fangirling over those videos. I will link that in the description. Hope to see you there. TXT hasn't been the only member to reflect on their humble beginnings, but I think it's very natural when you reach a certain point in success to want to look down. It's hard to look up, it's very uncertain, and the only certainty and clear view is below you. And it's also really a good way to gauge just how far you've come and keep you motivated to keep going. Jimin is someone who also really enjoys looking back down to see how far he's come and pushing himself to keep going. During an interview with Vogue Korea, Jimin talks about how he hasn't lived a very long life, but is aware that entertainment, dancing, and singing is the only thing he knows how to do. And when the pandemic hit, he felt like it wasn't fair because he couldn't do the thing that he was meant to do. One of the very important things about being an artist or performing is being able to do what you do and also continue to grow and get better. One of the most important ways to do this is to draw feedback from the audience. When you're performing, is the audience reacting positively when you do a certain thing, or does it appear to be a more negative reaction? Then you'll know right off the bat whether this is something you want to do again or not. If Jimin talked about how he didn't feel okay or even good about his performances during the pandemic, when there was not that live feedback there, he realized that it was indeed not okay. And it's true. How does one even grow or achieve any sort of feedback? You can't even meet people to have that feedback with. Jimin also talked more candidly about feeling a bit burnt out because during that time they were unaware of what is to come next and what the members should be doing next. There wasn't exactly live feedback from anyone, and it's hard to gauge what people are into and what type of music to go do next. Performers for a long time, the point of the music video and the press, the promo, all of that is to promote their tour. This is when artists make the most money. And so when you don't have that thing, then what is the point of anything you're doing? Also, why are you making music if not to sing in front of an audience and feel their energy? So I totally understand him feeling a bit like none of this is okay, and that he feels really sad about everything that unfolded. Jimin's journey is quite crazy, and it's very sad to hear someone work so hard only to have a lot of that ripped away from him. Jimin used to give himself vocal homework to do later by himself, and he would take what he learned and implement then. As I'm sure a lot of you were aware, they initially wanted Jimin to be a rapper. It's always fun to hear the members talk about their feelings, and it's been quite a few years, and we're able to see exactly how much of all this has affected them and still continues to affect them. Because artists now will still use a lot of that type of promotion style during COVID into their current promotion. So they're constantly being reminded of that time and how everything has changed since then. Suga and Jimin are both very emotional people and very in touch with their emotions. Suga tends to hide his emotions a little bit more, but they're very in touch. Of course, people wondered if Jimin recently had a reaction to Suga enlisting and what the reaction might be. Well, Jimin was reported to have gone to dinner with Suga recently, and there was a photo that came out where the shop owner posted, allegedly, Jimin and Suga's signature on a plank. People were saying that the two probably had one last dinner before enlistment, and maybe Suga and Jimin were getting emotional with each other. First off, Jimin is likely not emotional. It's just probably not something that he is going to get emotional about. Suga is enlisting pretty much only for a month or two. Suga went to the camp and likely already did his ceremony, and then right after will go into the military training for a bit. This is just the regular boot camp stuff, just getting familiar with wearing the uniform, etc. And then he will go into the office and work basically a 9-to-5 as a social service person. It's almost likely community service, and so Suga's not really going to be shipped away from Korea, and the law basically states that the BTS members could essentially still work during their service, which means Suga may still want to work after he gets home from the office. And I hope if he doesn't feel too tired, he could do that. Jimin and Suga probably did have some time together during their dinner, but it was likely chill and not a huge deal. People think that the owners of that restaurant basically exposed them both, and people think that the owner was being rude by exposing the members' location and where they were at. However, a lot of the times, the owners only show where the members were located only after the members have left, to avoid other people rushing over to see them. But for me personally, I'm very glad that the members did enjoy some time to themselves, not only because the enlistment, but because they never usually have time to themselves. To see that the two had some moments to relax before all this, it's quite interesting, because Suga will probably have a lot of time to himself during this session or service. However, none of the other members will have time, so he won't be able to have a break alongside those members. He will just be the only member that might have free time or time after 5 or 6 p.m. There were definitely a bunch of people that were also sending other members hate because allegedly Jimin is the only one showing support to Suga before his enlistment. However, this is so dumb to think about. The only reason we know that Jimin and Suga had dinner together was because the two signed something and the owners posted it. Meaning if each other member had dinner with Suga, but they went to a restaurant they frequent at who already had their signature, then of course we would never know about it. Let me know what you think. Make sure you check out my Patreon for more videos, link down below. Thanks for the lovely comment right here. Love you, bye.